Get going.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, with that, welcome to 45-Minute Mogul, Everything Entrepreneurship. I'm Nikki Ferguson. I'm the Manager of Entrepreneurial Development for Advanced Southwest Iowa Corporation. Today's topic is everything marketing, but we're kind of taking a more out-of-the-box approach, not your typical, maybe what you're thinking or what you've been doing in the past that maybe isn't working, and trying to maybe open you up to different options. And we're going to be talking a lot about branding, SEO, using influencers, social media, podcasts, sponsorships, anything in there. But if you have a question unrelated to any of that, feel free to send it our way. We're open to anything. And then in a moment, I'm going to pass it over to Christine Plunkett with Nebraska Enterprise Fund, our partner and co-host for all the Everything Entrepreneurship Moguls. But first, I'll do the abridged quick version of the housekeeping items. Obviously, today's webinar is being recorded. We have a few people that aren't able to attend. So if you want a copy of it after, feel free to reach out to myself or Christine and we will get you a recording. Use the Q&A feature in the bottom to ask any questions. You may ask it to the entire panel, or you can ask one panelist in particular. Obviously, we are using technology, so we always ask for grace and patience if any tech issues would arise. And I think that's the main important stuff to go through. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Christine to introduce today's panelists.
Awesome. Like Nikki said, I work for the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. We're a CDFI, and we work with revolving loan funds, training and coaching for small businesses. So I want to go ahead and I'm just going to start with who I see first here. I see Vivian with Tandem Works. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Vivian?
Sure. So I'm with Tandem Works, and we are located in Council Bluffs, and we are a marketing agency here that helps businesses figure out the whole marketing deal. Like, what do I need to be doing? Where do I start? So we really help businesses with strategy. But then we also get really hands-on, and we'll actually dig in and go, okay, well, this is how you set this up. This is what this is going to look like. This is the buttons to click. And especially as it has to do around social media engagement. But really, the thing that we've been saying most lately is it's really just about helping our clients create a buzz around their business. And that can look like a lot of different things. We don't necessarily believe in just like one channel and only one channel. There's not necessarily one way and only one way. It really has to do with you and your business. So that's what we're all about. And we have a second branch to our business, which is called Mac and V, like mac and cheese, but not. And that is all photography production. And so they go hand in hand, often complement each other well. And we have a lot of fun with it. You'll probably see people moving around back here, but I don't think it'll be too loud. So
thanks, Vivian. Next, I'm looking at Todd. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Todd?
Well, my name's Todd Studer. My company is Todd Studer Productions because I'm not as creative as some of the other people that are here. So I had to think of something. My background is radio. I got into the radio industry in 1994 and kind of grew my career from there, ultimately ending up at a national network based out of Denver, which is Westwood One, Cumulus. They do a lot of work out of there. And I was working for them. Now I do radio shows for a company called Local Radio Networks. They have about 500 affiliates across the country. That's kind of my background. What I help people with now and why I'm here is on the podcast end of it is I can either answer questions for people if they are wondering how to start their own podcast, or I can also serve as host, which I do for a number of different organizations, and just kind of a facilitator and let other people get their content out, and then I get it up and get it distributed everywhere that it needs to go. So that's the Reader's Digest condensed version of what I do.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Taylor, you're showing up next on my screen. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yes, I am Taylor Story. I own and run Little Stories with my sister-in-law, Allie Story, right here out of Council Bluffs, Iowa. We actually do it out of our house. We've been in business for almost a year now, in a few months. And my sister-in-law writes children's books, and then we put together activities for families to do together that match the theme of the book that go out each month on a subscription or one-time purchase basis. And why I'm here and on the panel is we use social media and influencer marketing for the majority of our marketing at this time, since we are brand new. And what's great about a lot of these resources is they're free for the most part. So
Great. And last but not least, how about Craig? Why don't you tell us about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, hi everyone. Right now I am VP of Marketing at Biso Studio in Omaha, Council Bluffs area. We also serve like Lincoln, and we have startups that we work with all over the country. So we work with tech startups, and I specifically help with the marketing side. I'm also the chapter director of Startup Grind, which is a community in the area that kind of brings together founders. And I have a history of, I ran a small marketing agency, worked in radio, digital advertising for radio before that. So I've worked with hundreds of clients ranging from solo small businesses in a small town, the whole way up to mid-sized enterprise companies, and some pretty big influencers as well on YouTube. So I just love trying to figure out how to get people out there and get their messages tuned in to the right message and get it into places where people will actually see it.
Well, I want to thank all of you. This is awesome. I'm so excited to listen to some of your answers, and we really are covering everything marketing. So Nikki, why don't you go ahead and take it away from here?
Thank you, Christine. And again, I echo her thanks to all of you panelists. Again, reminder, use the Q&A. You can answer your questions anonymously. So there's no dumb questions, except for the ones that aren't getting asked. I think that's what I was always told. But with that, I'm going to start with one that was sent over in advance. And I'm going to just open it up to whoever feels so inclined or has any feelings to answer. But do you have any simple tactics and on the cheap when it comes to guerrilla marketing that won't cause any legal issues or backlash? Anybody have any ideas on that?
Well, I'm super intrigued about this question. Legal
Take it
issues
away.
and backlash. I'm like, okay, what are we marketing here, right? Definitely a little context would help. So if that person's here and doesn't mind giving some context, that's helpful. But I think one of the main things is if you are in an industry, so often financial industries have this, educational industries have this, there are sometimes parameters that you do need to stick within. But it doesn't mean, I think sometimes people get this idea, oh, then that means I have to use the canned content that I'm given, or I just have to keep it really safe, right? And though you don't want to do anything out of compliance, for sure, wouldn't recommend that. It doesn't mean that you can't get creative. And I think the big thing is, if you start telling stories and you make things that people want to share, that's going to be your best tactic when it comes to like that whole, people always talk about like that guerrilla marketing. Like, what does guerrilla marketing mean? I think sometimes people get the idea it's like this under the radar, like power packed secrets that only a couple of people have. But really, it's about making something that you think other people would share. And it doesn't matter what channel or platform that's on, but if you would share it, then probably someone else would too. And I would say that's like the simplest overarching key when I hear guerrilla marketing.
Thank you, Vivian. I'm just going to follow up with that. What do you think if you mentioned the content that people want to share? If you could give a small business or startup one piece of advice, like this is the kind of content you want to share, this is the go-to number one thing that everyone should do out of the gate, what would that one thing be in your opinion? And anybody else, feel free to chime in as well.
Ooh, that's a good one. So the best way I can answer this is it's a little bit three-part. Okay, so number one is whoever this asking this question. So everyone on the panel attending, like shut your eyes and envision your ideal customer, right? Like who's the person you love? You can pull a name up in your head, like, oh, I love to serve so-and-so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to think about, well, what would they like to share, right? What do they find fun or interesting or brings them joy, or they would just like have to take a screenshot of and put into a text message to somebody, right? When you can picture what that is, the next piece is make a piece of content like that that just connects to your business and your story, right? So for example, let's say that you love running, you're part of a running club, and everyone that you would text things to, you're always texting memes and things back and forth about a running club. But you're a real estate agent. So you might be like, okay, Vivian, what the heck are you talking about? Well, what about doing something fun where you take pictures of your favorite places to run by, explain why, and you tell them why that's a great neighborhood to move into? What a great way to be doing something as a realtor, right? Or JC just gave a suggestion recently of like, take a picture of your Spotify playlist. Everyone loves to know what people are listening to. Tell them what you're listening to on your run while you ran past your most recent house closing. You were checking it out and look how the grass looks super green, right? So there are little things like that that you can use. And then the other thing I would say is think about what you share. Like if you wouldn't share it, then don't make it, right? Because you're just kind of wasting your time. So what do you share? Because if it brings you joy, you're gonna have fun with it, and people can tell when you're having fun with it. Okay, and then last piece, and then I'll get this over. But if you're asking about like more of a tactical thing, make a video. People want to watch a video. What's great about videos, you can pull the audio out, which Todd, I'm sure, can like talk more about. But now you've got a blog, now you've got a podcast, now you have a soundbite, like you have so much content, but people keep scrolling through videos because it moves, and we like things that move. It's like, squirrel. So that's what I've got for you.
Thank you, Vivian. That was very in-depth and I'm sure appreciated. Anybody else, Todd, Taylor, Craig, have anything to add while we're on the topic of content or guerrilla marketing?
Well, you talked about the pulling the audio out of the video. That's actually fairly easy to do with the right software. And there's a lot of free software that's out there that you don't have to pay a lot of money for. Most of the video work that I do, I am editing on a product called DaVinci Resolve. And they have a free version, and they also have a paid version. I have found that what I would gain from the paid version, I don't really need for what I'm doing. So I am still using the free version of what they have, and it's very robust. And the audio editor that's inside of that is better than a lot of the other editors that are out there. So, and it's easy enough to pull it out. And you can, if you have a video with audio and you just want to get the audio out, you just click a couple of buttons. And it's like anything. You need the muscle memory for it. There's going to be a learning curve involved with it. But once you have it down, then you know it. And it's a lot of this stuff is very user friendly. So that's my method of doing that.
I think there's also opportunity for, if you're a small business and you can learn those things, I think that's always super valuable. Same thing with kind of building websites or creating content for yourself. But sites like Fiverr are a great way to kind of scale that ability to make content or repurpose content. It's you got to try a couple people sometimes to get someone that's actually does a good job. But, paying someone $25 to do that when you're busy running your business and serving customers is not a bad idea at all. I've seen some people, especially local businesses, like there was a like sandwich shop in my hometown that did a really good job with that. She'd take a lot of photos, and then she would hire people on Fiverr to kind of turn them into cool little graphics that would get shared on social, and they always look delicious. So they would get shared like a ton. So if you're in something that's visual, especially, this kind of stuff's really, figure out how you can share visually what your business is producing. And then I really liked the suggestions that Vivian was making. If you're a real estate agent or even a financial advisor or something, you can do things that are more personal, that kind of tiptoe around talking about what your actual like regulated industry is. But it's more about developing that relationship and being like, look, I live in your neighborhood. I care about these areas, like, and showing off you as a person, and kind of inching your way into the expertise piece without actually crossing that line. You have to understand where those lines are for yourself. I used to do a lot of work for financial advisors, and it was always like, let's just forget the financial content because that's like, there's so much red tape around that, but let's just talk about you and like your life experience so people can relate to you. And then, that's why they're going to end up working with you anyway, because they trust you. And so much of our content is about trust. It's about, developing expertise, and it's about developing trust.
I have actually done a lot of work on the other side of Fiverr, providing voiceover work. I've got a project right now that I'm working on that a comedian who juggles wants a voiceover playing in the background, and he wants me to play the role of the color commentator. So there's all kinds of services on Fiverr, and there's some very talented people out there. Go through, find somebody that has some examples of the type of work that you want. The pool is very deep, and you can find a lot of talent there.
Thank you. Taylor, do you have anything to add on any of that?
I don't. I just know that with everything that they're saying, and from the small business side of not having expertise in marketing, we have just tried our best to try things. And some things have worked better than we thought they would have, and some things totally failed. And so I think that it's really important. It's hard, but I think it's really important that if you take something from this and you're like, oh, I'm not really great at that, or you're not really sure how to implement it, it doesn't hurt to try.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, while it kind of came up, I'm going to go into the next question. As we were talking about Fiverr, what are your thoughts on using something like Fiverr or Upwork when it comes to branding, which you all kind of touched on? So I don't know if obviously it's kind of sounds like hit and miss. Craig?
Well, I think that it depends on how deep the work you want done is. I think if it's like one-off little things, or you kind of have like I'll use them for graphic design stuff or little audio editing things that I just don't have the time for. But when you're talking about something as important as branding, it's like if you're really, really on a tight budget and you can't afford to pay a freelancer, $1,000 to $5,000 to do your branding, then potentially there's kind of a version 1 of your branding that you could do with something like Fiverr. But understand that that's probably not going to get you enough to really set up a solid brand, because there's so much more than just like design a logo. There's entire style guides and the thinking behind that. What does that represent? How does that represent your business? Kind of what's the messaging and the voice of your business? All of that stuff, you really should be working with someone that kind of knows what they're doing and can sit down with you and work through that stuff. And the best opportunity there is to work with someone local that you can literally go sit down with. There's just a bit of an efficiency you gain from doing something like that. And there's lots of really great branding agencies here in Council Bluffs and in Iowa and Nebraska. So, also it's great to support other local businesses when you get the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have thoughts.
Like, oh yeah, this one excites me a ton because we work with a lot of different size of businesses. So people who are like, they don't even really have a business yet will call us up, right? And they're like, I just have an idea and I need a logo. Is like the first thing that people think, right? Like I got a business, I need a logo and I need a website. And I'll just tell a quick story. So when Michaela and I, so she's my co-founder, we first joined our business together. So we'd both been in business for a long time, had our own business, established, branded, all that stuff. But then we joined together and we had this new thing called Tandem Works. And it's kind of a funny thing because we love good branding. I mean, it's yummy and beautiful and delicious. And like when you can have it, that's what you want, right? But full disclosure, coming from that world, we cashed our first check as Tandem Works with no bank account. It was a sizable check, no bank account, and I hacked together a logo myself, and I am not a designer, on Canva. And so we always tell that story to people when they first ask, because we are all about like 100% agree with Craig. Like you are going to want a great brand and great logo at some point. But with that being said, never let not having a website, not having the perfect logo, not knowing what your colors are, hold you back from making content, getting out there, marketing. I loved what Taylor was talking about, like just get out there and try it, dang it. In the end, people are not going to remember what your logo was the first year that you started. In fact, it could be fun to actually post that 5 or 6 years later and be like, look how far we've come. And so totally agree with Craig, not nixing what he said at all, but also just want to layer on top of his like stages of like, get out there and do it, and do not let it hold you back, because we see so many people where it like holds them back, right? So hack it until you get where you need to be.
Yeah, in the startup space, we're all about that is that validation stage. It's like you do minimal viable project. Can I throw something together on Canva that's good enough? Canva.com, by the way, is a great tool if you're not a designer to kind of hack together designs. And even if you are a designer, it's a pretty efficient and cheap tool. They have free versions that you can create a logo in like literally 20 minutes if you've never used a design tool before in your life. But it's all about like, what's the service you're trying to provide? How can you get to market and get a customer, and then get a couple more customers, and then start thinking like, okay, how do I scale this? How do I make this look really legit so that I can start getting bigger, more like established customers and compete with kind of the more established people in the market.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. With that, staying on the line of branding, this is just my follow-up, not anyone else. So what in that initial branding package, like you said, we're going to say we've already established our MVP here. And like, so we're just starting out though. When people think branding, I think you're right. It goes straight to what's my logo? What's my colors? Are there other things that are kind of totally imperative that needs to also be part of your branding package, in your opinions?
Yeah, I think that a big piece of it is the voice, is developing what the voice of the brand is, because that applies when you're making a video. And sometimes that voice is your voice. And it's just making sure, kind of thinking about how do I communicate with my target customers, my ideal clients, in a way that resonates with them and potentially differentiates me from all the other people that I'm competing with. Some people get really out there with this, and it's honestly, it would scare the heck out of someone that's in like in a corporate environment. But because you're a small business of one or something, you're allowed, you can kind of be more direct, or be funny, or be a little controversial is not necessarily a bad thing. Like you don't want to be a jerk. I mean, I don't know, some people use that as their brand too, and it works for them. Like but developing what is that voice, so that everything that you're producing is consistent, because that hearing that voice over and over and over and over again connected to your brand is what makes people start to remember you and think like, oh, like I like these people because they have a personality. Their brand feels like it has a personality. And I think especially when people are looking at like corporate branding, oftentimes as inspiration, it can be easy to be like, well, I need to play it safe. I need to not offend anybody. I need to like, I need to be very serious and buttoned up. But you have the opportunity, if you're a small business, to not have to do that, which makes you more relatable to some people, at least.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, like, so Taylor, I'm thinking of you because I follow you on the on the socials.
Yes.
Taylor was mentioning about just get out there and do it. And again, it's like Craig saying, you do have to have that voice, but you have to be authentic and real, right? To who you are. And then thinking too, when you're going, okay, I need logo, colors, typography, and then I'm going to need to know my voice, but you can't know your voice and all of those other things until you know who you're talking to, right? So you can know yourself, but if you don't know who you're talking to, that makes it really difficult then to like kind of fall into the right vibe and voice that you have, because we're multifaceted people and our brands are also multifaceted, and you have maybe a tender side, but you might have a funny side too, right? Like you might have a quirky side, but you have a serious side as well. And so you're just kind of choosing what to amplify about your business the most, let those others come in. And Taylor, I'm curious how you have been developing your voice, because you just see the progression even happening through your social media. Are you just trying things out? Are you just letting it evolve? Or did you sit down and go, okay, here's our voice. This is how we're going to show up?
Yeah, so when we first were putting everything together, we didn't really have anything on social media. We worked for months because we did want to make sure that we really defined who our audience was going to be. Family is so important to us. Our grandmother was involved in this project, or is involved in this project. She illustrates some of our books, but so we are very family based. We wanted to use families to print our products, like family owned companies. And then obviously our customer is families, but then who is that family? What type of family is it? And what things do they like to do together? And so we kind of took that approach. And then Allie and I, my sister-in-law and I, are just kind of like goofy people. We're just silly. And so we started out more serious, especially in the beginning when we were honestly afraid of making videos and making reels and kind of making a fool out of ourselves. And now we're just like, whatever, let's just be goofballs because that's who we are. I think we realized that the customer that we were really seeking was someone a lot more similar to us than the just like you were saying, trying to be more serious and corporate person. And so we kind of learned over time and let that grow. Like, we took a lot of time in the beginning to see what we thought it was going to be, and then from there we let it ebb and flow to become what it is now, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, this has been great conversation so far. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but since you're up, Taylor, how is the question? How did you start getting influencers? How did you make that happen for a brand new startup?
Yeah, so a few of our influencers were just people that I knew. So my old ballet teacher, she's in the Council Bluffs area, and she has, I think, 50,000 followers on Instagram now. She has 2 kids. We sent her a box. Now, her Instagram and her influence is over dancers. It's not moms. Some of these moms follow accounts, so we still gained customers, but it wasn't exactly our specific audience was not the same as hers. But still, that was a good starting place. And then also a girl that I went to college with is actually in Beachbody and has quite a nice following. And so I reached out to her and asked if she had anyone else that was in her business that was a mom and had toddlers and would be interested in helping us market our products and showing them on their stories if we sent them free boxes. And so we got a few, I think 3 different people from her, including herself. And the good thing about them is a lot of times, at least these 3 specifically, they do share a lot about their kids and about their family and activities that they do together, not just fitness. So even though their audience is fitness, it's also families and people with toddlers and people similar to them. So that was good. But the biggest thing, our biggest influencer is Emily Favre. I don't know if any of you have heard of who that is, but again, she's actually Beachbody, but she knows or is a part of many different projects. And her daughter and her are TikTok famous. They have 3 million followers on TikTok. And so randomly on Instagram, we just saw her PO box. And we did this for 3 or 4 other large influencers where we just saw their PO box and we're like, okay, they have kids, they have an audience that we would like to be a part of. And so we just sent one of their PO box with a card saying, we think you're great and here's what we are. We didn't ask them to post it. And she ended up, a few other ones posted as well, but hers had the biggest impact. So she posted it, and immediately the first time she posted, we had 250 more followers and 4 orders. And so of course we kept sending her boxes and she keeps posting them. And now we're actually working on a collaboration together. So it's been just sending that, just by seeing that PO box and sending her a box has started something a lot bigger.
Awesome. I love your story, how you guys did that. Moving along just for the sake of time. Todd, I'm going to send this to you. What kind of cost, and I'm sure this is a little open, but what kind of cost is involved in sponsorships when it comes to the national podcasts? Or is it better just to start producing your own? What's the benefit of that?
Well, cost, there is some standards that people say that it's roughly, anywhere from $35 to $50 per 1,000 downloads. But what does it cost? Well, it depends on what you're willing to pay. There's a lot of people that they have podcasts and they have sponsors, and there's more to it than just direct advertising that you can get from that. It's what is your business name attached to, and is it something that you want to support? Which is when I'm talking to people about a sponsorship of a podcast, it's different than if they are actually going to be a part of doing their own podcast. And I have, there's a lady that decided that she wanted to start a podcast about foster children and just that particular area, and how does somebody become a foster parent? What are the, on the back end after somebody's gone through the program, what's it like, and things like that. So she and I, we just sat down and talked, and I helped her set up some audio editing software. She'd already had a microphone, but she didn't understand how to get it to connect. She records everything over Zoom. Just a lot of stuff that I do, I record over Zoom. And then it's just deciding what platform that you want to use as distribution. There's a lot of different platforms out there. Personally, I use Libsyn, but there are other ones. There are free ones. I use Libsyn because I can track a lot of the analytics, and I can see specifically where everybody is, where they're listening. I can see how long they've listened. I can see unique downloads. So if somebody is starting and stopping the podcast a lot, it's not going to count that as a click every time. So we can be a lot more accurate with that. So cost on Libsyn is $15 a month, and you've got all the, if you're just doing an audio podcast, you've got everything that you need. That's going to give you plenty of space. I typically, with clients that I have, I pay the $20 version because it gives me a little bit more of the statistics that I want to be able to track with. And like I said, if somebody is wanting to do their own and host their own, that's about all you need, other than just whatever type of equipment that you want to use to be able to record with. People use just a USB mic and go straight into a free audio software, such as Audacity, or, and there's other ones as well. But you don't need Pro Tools from Apple in order to be able to record a podcast. You can if you want to, but you don't really need it. So the cost can be minimal. And then at that point, how do you get people to listen to it? Well, there's a reason why Marvel advertises for their movies the way they do. You've created the content, but now you got to use some of these fine folks here to be able to help you get the word out and to be able to market that. I help with content. These folks are much better at managing social media and that type of stuff. So it's not that expensive if you want to be able to host your own podcast. And then everybody that does one, there's a big splash right away at the beginning. The first one is just going to get all of these downloads, and then it drops. And then you know specifically where you're at, and you can start growing it from there. So it's not expensive. It's not expensive at all. If you just want to attach your name to it, well, you can. A lot of these bigger podcasts are, like I said, $35 to $50 per 1,000 downloads. So, somebody like a Joe Rogan, who's got huge numbers, he's making millions of dollars, just off of sponsorships. So, but don't expect that to happen. That's the one-off. I don't think anybody that I've ever worked with could ever achieve those kind of numbers. I work more regional and local. So.
Awesome. I'm glad that you used Joe Rogan as all your examples. We take it back to the Spotify reference earlier. This next question, just because of what I know about Craig, I'm going to send this to you. What is the best way to move up higher on the Google search?
Yes, I love this topic. I've been working in Google SEO since like 2006, 2007. So I've watched all the changes happen. But it's really just content. Like if you look for it depends what kind of search you're looking for. The best way to figure it out is first identify what the keywords are that you want to rank for, and then search those keywords. What's showing up? If it's a bunch of list articles and it's a bunch of how-to articles, you're going to have to create one of those, and it's going to have to be better than everything else that's on that listing. And better means a user's going to click on it and stay on it for longer, potentially get more value out of it, add visuals. There's all kinds of things you can do. If you're looking at a keyword and the competitors are all like TripAdvisor and like big national brands, don't try to compete for that. It's just like, you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time and not really do very well. But try finding tweaks to that keyword. What if you add another word? What if you add Council Bluffs or Omaha? Or even if the Omaha one's too competitive, what if you add Papillion or Ralston or something, a smaller neighborhood, and you can pull in those local searches, which you're not going to get as big of numbers, but you'll get more relevant numbers, and you'll get more relevant people that'll come into your actual business. The other thing is, if you're a local business and you're trying to get ranked, you want to worry about your website and what's on your website and making sure appropriate keywords are there, making sure that you're refreshing it often. Google likes websites that are updated weekly or monthly. So if it's been months since you updated your website, just add something somewhere on your website just to show that it's still a relevant website to Google. But really focus on that Google business page, that little thing that pops up on the map. Like the map app is the majority of the results for local businesses. So spending time making sure to ask your customers to give you reviews there, make sure you have all your information filled out there, and make sure you're kind of plugging some keywords in. Don't overstuff it with keywords because Google catches on to that stuff. But if there are relevant keywords, there's relevant services you offer, make sure you fill out those little service options. And honestly, a huge part of it is are the people searching actually close to you when they're searching? That's a huge factor there. And then are you getting reviews? Sometimes you'll be able to outrank someone that has more reviews than you because you have more recent reviews. So if you have competitors that maybe have hundreds of reviews, don't get too discouraged because recent reviews are weighted. So if you get 20, 50, even 5, 10, depending on what kind of industry you're in, people reviewing your business on Google. I've actually worked with multiple people in Omaha that have went from being nowhere on there to being the first and second and getting a bunch of business from those Google listings just by getting like 3 or 4 reviews back to back.
Awesome. And just for the sake of time, because I definitely want to leave our last few minutes for final thoughts and shameless plugs from all of us involved. But along the lines, as you're talking keywords, let's talk hashtags. What is too much? What do you need to have in your hashtags? Everything hashtags. Any input on that from anyone?
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting because my husband actually is a landscape photographer. He's trying to figure out this whole social media thing, which makes for some very interesting conversations. Sometimes I'm like, go talk to somebody else in our office, okay? That'd be great. But hashtags comes up a lot. So one of the things sometimes people don't know is that you can use hashtags on Facebook, but generally speaking, you don't want to use as many. And then there's a huge debate out there about how many hashtags are too much. Like you'll see posts, right, where you click on the comments and it is full of hashtags, and then you'll see other posts and it's got like 3 hashtags, and then you might look at how many people are following those and you're like, okay, this doesn't add up. The one with so many hashtags only has a small interaction. The one with the more or with less hashtags has tons of interaction. And so people will have this idea of, well, then what that means is they're using too many hashtags, they're turning people away. We argue a slightly different theory, and I'm open for people to disagree. But what we have found is that when you're not well known, it is a fabulous idea to use the max number of hashtags possible, because that is your address. That's how people find you. It's the number on your building. Okay, so when you're thinking about like the old days where you just had people walk by into your shop, that is how they find you, and that's the map and the roadmap into your storefront. So the more opportunities you have to put that in front of people and give people a map, the more they will find you. As your following grows, you can stop using as many hashtags and you can start dropping more and more of those off. So our rule of thumb is, if you don't have a ton of followers right now, literally use the max number of hashtags possible. Make sure they're relevant. Make sure you understand what the hashtag is, so you don't inadvertently end up on something you were not expecting to be associated with. And then as your following grows, feel free to start dropping some of those hashtags off, because a lot of people go, well, it makes me look desperate. Hate to break it to you, that is in your head. If you feel desperate, you look desperate. Okay, the number of hashtags does not define whether or not you are a desperate person. So make great content, put as many hashtags in there as you want, and then drop them off as you continue to grow.
I want to fully support that. I've done a lot with influencers that are very big. That's how they got discovered originally. It's all about discoverability. And also just a little like kind of hack for it worked really well on Instagram when Instagram was starting, and Twitter. It works less so now, but I'm it's seeing it work on TikTok, where if you're doing a bunch of hashtags and there's a couple hashtags that are really popular, or like they have at least a couple hundred people using that hashtag. If you are doing it yourself and you have the time, it's a really good use of your time really early on to click on that hashtag and go interact with some of the top posts, or some of the most, even better than the top post is the most recent post. People that literally just posted the same hashtag as you are very likely to be interested. And if you're just looking to get some engagement and kind of boost that social algorithm love, go out and give some love. And that's, I've helped people build from 0 to a couple hundred to a couple thousand followers on Instagram and Twitter specifically by doing that method of going. And it's not necessarily like saying like follow for follow, but like genuine interactions. Be like, this is really cool. What do you think about this? The more genuine interaction you can do, the better. Obviously, there's a give and take with time there. But when you're really just first starting out, that's a very helpful kind of little hack to get you the little attention when you're just trying to get some people to pay attention to your page initially.
Awesome. You guys, this has been incredible. And I'm guessing our attendees and future watchers will appreciate your wealth of information and being candid about all of this. And it's kind of given us another way to look at what we all may be doing for marketing. So thank you guys. Appreciate your time. With that, I'm going to wrap it up so we can always stay within our 45 minutes and get people off to their lunch meetings and whatnot. But I definitely want to close with final thoughts. Anything you guys have coming up that might be of interest to the entrepreneurial community in the Metro, feel free to share, plug anything you guys have coming up is awesome as well. Your social medias. Let's definitely give you some love there. Real quick, our upcoming events. We have a little something in the works with Mr. Todd Studer himself, as far as for Advanced Southwest Iowa and an upcoming podcast where we're going to feature new startups or even existing small businesses and just basically let people know what's happening in CV and Pot County and the Metro in general. So if you are a small business and want to be featured on that, reach out to me, Todd, whoever, and we'll get you on the lineup for that. And then we do have our monthly meetups, which are just any small business entrepreneurs that want to come kind of really casual, happy hour, get feedback, get input from other small businesses, learn, get mentors. We did not have one for January because of the current numbers, but tentatively have something planned for later on in February, and that will probably be hosted by Miss Vivian and Michaela over at Tandem Works. So stay tuned for that. And then I'll let Christine let you know about what's coming up for the next 45-minute mogul. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and head straight to Taylor and let you, any closing thoughts or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so first off, thank you for asking me to be a part of this. And just shameless plug, there is a pop-up that's at the Occasional Collective in Trainer that we're doing next week. So kind of two small businesses in the area that we're coming together on. Also, please follow us if you have kids or if you have family with kids. Everyone, there's kids in your lives. So please follow us. We have new books that come out every month. And also that collab that I was talking about with Emily is going to be really cool. It's about one of her famous TikToks. So yeah, just stay tuned and follow our stuff.
Awesome. Craig.
Yeah, so we have the thanks again also for having me. We have Startup Grind in Omaha, but it's right in downtown, so it's not that far from Council Bluffs. It's at Modus Co-working the third Thursday of every month. We're specifically focused on tech startups. So if you're in technology or interested in could your business be technology or could you create a business in the technology space, that's exactly who we're creating these events for. We sit down and chat with someone who's done it before or has some later stage success so they can kind of teach people what that roadmap looks like. And it's just an exciting community of creative people trying to build stuff.
Awesome. And we're going to hopefully get Craig and do a little collaboration over here on this side sometime in 22. So with that, Todd, you're working backwards.
Well, I have a website called Success in Iowa, and that doesn't mean that it's only about Iowa. I actually, a couple of young men that were go to UNO were touring every city in Iowa after they did Nebraska last year. I had them on a video podcast. I've shelved that podcast a little bit just because I was taking up so much time trying to find guests. So, and it took away from my own business. So I really think that podcasts are a big benefit for nonprofits. It's a way for them to be able to stay in touch with the people that are interested in not only maybe they're donors, maybe they're people who are taking advantage of what that nonprofit offers. It's a little bit longer form. I typically don't go over 20 minutes with any of them because I think it can start to everybody's busy and our attention spans are not what they used to be. So that's about the length that it goes, but also with a nonprofit doing a podcast, it allows you to attach sponsorships to that. So if you have larger donors that you want to, as you mentioned many times, give some love to, it's a great place to do that. Podcasts are not subject to all of the rules and regulations of the FCC yet. So we have a lot more freedom. We just plug whatever, it's fine. My personal philosophy, though, is you talk, Craig, about being controversial. I don't say anything into this microphone that I wouldn't say into my grandmother's ear. That's my philosophy, and that goes back to radio. And I'm just so we keep it tame, we keep it family friendly, just to make sure that we're not stepping on anybody's toes with that. But that's basically it. And I am looking forward. We're going to get the first episode released of I think we've settled on Launchcast, haven't we, as a name? So people keep wanting me to use Toddcast, but I'm not egotistical. So
that could be our AKA. Thank you so much, Todd and Vivian.
Yeah. Okay. If I get my last say to try and inspire you all, because this is super fun. Thank you. It's really fun to get on and do this. But here's where I think it's at, friends, is basically like, be you, be consistent, have tenacity. Remember, nobody actually cares until you make them care. Okay. So you've got to just get out there. Like Taylor said, get out there. That's where the tenacity piece comes in. Try it and then stay consistent with it. If you're starting a podcast, nobody's going to listen at first. Just accept it. If you're starting Instagram, nobody's going to follow it first. Just accept it. But if you stay true to who you are, true to your brand, you have a good story to tell, you will grow, like absolutely will grow, but you have to show up. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen. And that really is the best hack like I could possibly give you. And then the last one of our core values here is to stay curious. If you're staying curious about all of this, you will figure it out. Like 100% you'll figure it out. And then you'll know more than I know about something on some topic. And then I'm going to come talk to you about it, right? So I think that's one of the cool things about marketing. And then I've got 2 resources for you that are completely free. I'm going to put links in the chat. So one is we have a Facebook group called Tandem Work Circle for Marketing. It's free. You can join it if you want to learn more about marketing and get feedback on things. If you're the type of person who makes a post and you're not sure about pushing publish because you're self-conscious about it and you want to put it there first, if you put it in there, we guarantee 100% that one of our team will respond to you with helpful feedback. And it can be anything having to do with marketing, a flyer, or this is who I think my audiences are. Anything at all, no stupid questions. They're all fine. How do I put a button here or a link? It doesn't matter. Send it to us. If we don't know, we have people who do know. So feel free to join that. And then the other thing I'm going to give you is a second link. This is a sign up form where you can sign up. We have a year-long weekly email that goes out, and it is one easy to digest social media tip. It's maybe 2 paragraphs long. Open it, read it, use it, digest it, and you can delete it, and then that's fine. So those are 2 resources that I have if you want to keep exploring and staying curious and showing up. Yeah, that's what I've got for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vivian. And thank you to everyone. Obviously, we went over our 45 minutes, but I'm making a new rule because we usually finish early. So I'm using our rollover for this month, the previous like 7 or 8, because I can. With that, I'm going to give it to my awesome co-host, Miss Christine at NEF, to close it out.
Back at you, awesome co-host. So just a reminder, our next Mogul is March 3rd, and it's going to be fabulous. Everything about tax and accounting right in time for when our taxes are going to be coming due. So that'll be a great one. I do want to thank all of our panelists today. You guys are fabulous. You know that, right? I enjoy just listening to you, and I learned so much, and I won't absorb it all, but I learned a lot today. And then I also want to bring up, we do a small business, I do a small business essentials webinar with the SBDC, and we have that coming up on Tuesday. That'll be an interesting one. It's an overview of QuickBooks Online for those of you who are looking to get into accounting software. This is in the cloud, which is awesome. You can access it anywhere. And then it will lead up to a 2-day training, live in-person training on Saturday, March 19th and 26th. So we'll let you know more about that as it gets a little bit closer, but I will be sending out save the dates on that as well. So that's pretty much what we have going on. So thanks again, everyone. And I guess till next time.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and everyone out there. If you want to be connected to anyone on the panel, reach out to me. We can get you that information, but find them on social, interact, engage. Yeah, and always support local. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And again, panelists, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.